Welcome all of you to the Sunnylands Center and Gardens. Many of you know that the Center and Gardens where we are right now only opened 4 years ago. And yet I think it's become a fixture in this community and a place we're all really proud of. And I think a place where the Annenberg family and Walter and Leonore Annenberg would have been so proud to have you all here tonight. Let me just recognize and welcome a couple of the elected officials who are here, and if I miss anybody, I apologize. But of course, Mayor Dana Hobart is here with his wife, Vicki. Dana, welcome. Thank you, sir. I see on my notes here that Ted Weil is here. I don't know if you were actually here, Ted. I can't see. Yes, there's Ted Weil, Mayor Pro Tem, and his wife, Jenny. Welcome to you guys. The immediate past mayor of Rancho Mirage, Iris Smotrich, and her husband, Tom. Welcome to Iris and Tom. And Council Member Richard Kite. I have to say to all of you, for me, having been the president of Sunnylands for the last almost 6 years, what a true privilege it's been to work with all of you. And to make this dream become true, you've all played a crucial role, and you're making more dreams come true as well. And also I want to welcome State Senator Jeff Stone. Jeff, where are you? There are so many people here who played a role in the lives of Walter and Leonore Annenberg, but there's one person here in particular who was especially important, almost like another daughter to Leonore Annenberg, and I want to pay special recognition to her, and that's Carol Price. Carol, thank you so much for being here. You all know how much the Annenbergs cared about this community. There were other places in the world where they played an amazing role. If you go to London, you can hardly take a step without finding something else named for Annenberg. It's true in Philadelphia. We have a lot of Annenberg reasons to be proud in Los Angeles. But I think there was no place where they left a bigger mark than in this community. And it was 45 years ago when they played such an important role in helping to found the Eisenhower Medical Center, which we're celebrating tonight. And I know it's something of which they were enormously, enormously proud. And it was 50 years ago, I'm proud to say, this March, when the Annenbergs first welcomed visitors to Sunnylands. So we're celebrating at Sunnylands our 50th anniversary. These commemorative buttons, which I know, Jeff, we're already selling them on eBay, but we have them for you. Recognize the fact that it's been 50 years ago, so one of the first couples that the Annenbergs welcomed to Sunnylands in March of 2016 was Dwight and Mamie Eisenhower. And so it's so perfect, and of course, as you all know, we also like to say that we're the Camp David of the West, and who was David? David, of course, is their grandson, David Eisenhower. So we feel like Sunnylands is intimately connected with the Eisenhower family and also with the Eisenhower Medical Center. And we have the guest book and a few photos around and display in the gallery, and I hope some of you will have a chance to look at them. Later, you're going to hear from Ann Rowe, who's the Director of Collections and Exhibits. And actually, if you haven't adhered to her plea before, let me also remind you of her plea. If you have any especially wonderful memorabilia about the Annenbergs, which you think should be shared with our archives, please share them with Ann. She's she covets those kinds of materials. And she'll talk about the Eisenhower and Annenberg friendship. But first, Michael Landis, who I've actually known Michael since before I was the president here, because the Annenbergs brought together various Annenberg entities, and Michael and I were 2 Annenberg entities when I was the dean of the Annenberg School at USC. They planned a special evening for you, and I'm delighted to turn the podium and the evening over to Michael Landis. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jeffrey. I'm not sure if everyone saw today's Desert Sun, but front page, Desert Sun, lower section of the front page is an article about President Jeffrey Cowan. And I would encourage you to read it because I read this wonderful piece that talked about his background and how varied and incredibly rich it is. I'm talking about in the United States, how he has helped change for the better very important aspects of the electoral system in this country and fought for civil rights, and then, of course, led the Annenberg Center at USC, which is very important. So just a very incredible background, and Jeffrey Cowan is stepping aside now. He's been the president. He's led Sunnylands Trust through all of these wonderful changes, but really introduced it. So we really are thankful that you've allowed us to be here tonight, Jeffrey, and enjoy this history, but also we're here especially for us to introduce, so thank you so much. We're going to kick off this special program by welcoming Jan Salta and also Susie Loprino, who are our co-chairs and have just done a fabulous work for us at Eisenhower to celebrate our 45-year anniversary. And I want to bring both you up, Jan and Susie, please come up. We're celebrating our 50 years of Sunnylands relationship, but also, yes, thank you both. Really an amazing job. I want to hand this over to Jan, who has just done a tremendous work, but I could go on and on about what they've done for us for this gala, which we haven't had a gala like this in a decade. And I am overwhelmed with how well it's going. I don't want to say any more. I'm going to let Jan take it from here. And go ahead, Jan, you tell me how good has it been.
It's been wonderful. It really has. It's been a lot of fun. And Susie and I are so grateful that we're able to thank the sponsors tonight. And on behalf of Eisenhower Medical Center and the 45th Anniversary Gala Committee, we would like to thank all of the gala sponsors for their incredible generosity. Your spirit of giving is an inspiration to everyone, and together you have raised over $1.7 million. This will be used to purchase the new Da Vinci Xi surgical system. As co-chairs, Susie and I had a lot of fun planning not only tonight, but a month from tonight's gala, along with our committee. We did a lot of unusual things. We got to taste the food. We got to listen to music. We have a lot of fun surprises in store for all of you. So I'm looking forward, as Susie is as well, and our committee, a month from tonight, seeing you at the gala. And I would just want to say until then, we hope you enjoyed tonight, and we just can't thank you enough for your sponsorship. It means a lot to us and to Eisenhower Medical Center. Thank you.
Stay here, Jan. It wouldn't be possible for us to be here tonight if Sunnylands hadn't allowed this. This is a special time for us as we celebrate 45 years. But I wanted to also say that the Hopes, this is something the Hopes and the Annenbergs actually used to get together on annually. They had a party, and it was actually the Hopes that put this on at the Hope Home, and the Annenbergs were consistently involved with this in advance of a gathering to support Eisenhower Medical Center every year for 30 years. Because the home is being sold, we also, we said, well, Sunnylands is the natural place to be. So we were lucky enough to be here, but I want to just share this. At the gala, we have something very important, and that is, we think that Eisenhower Medical Center, like Sunnylands, is so American in its background and its history. And we're going to have a patriotic song. We're going to sing God Bless America. And one of the things that we decided to do, instead of having a professional come in like Lee Greenwood to sing it, it was actually too expensive. We said, they told me it's too expensive. So we said, we're going to have an open call. And in that open call, we're going, at McCallum, who donated McCallum Theater for us, we're going to have our board be the judges, along with our CEO and our senior VP, Marty Masiello, and Aubrey, our CEO. We're going to be the judges, and the winner of that open call, for those that are 15 to 24, we want a young singer to come in from anywhere, any school in the Coachella Valley and give it their best and sing it, and then we're going to judge them. And the number one singer will be the person that sings God Bless America at the gala. And we plan to give them a $4,500 in honor of 45 years check as a scholarship to continue their career. And so I'm going to turn this over to, I hope I didn't say too much, but I'm going to turn this over to you, okay, Susie Loprino.
Thank you, Michael. I've had the pleasure of getting to know this young woman somewhat, and she's indeed charming, elegant, and she has a vision for herself. She is a singer and actress, and she performs in the Valley, has performed with several different theater companies. Her favorite role was in Les Mis, and she received Best Supporting Actress for Eponine. Anyway, she's been performing since the age of 7, and she is now 23, I believe, 24. And so I would like for you all to welcome Sarah Hager from Palm Desert.
Sleigh bells ring, I listen. In the lane, snow is glistening. A beautiful sight, we're happy tonight, walking in a winter wonderland. Gone away is the bluebird, here to stay is a new bird. He sings a love song as we go along, walking in a winter wonderland. In the meadow we can build a snowman and pretend that he is Parson Brown. He'll say, "Are you married?" We'll say, "No, man," but you can do the job when you're in town. Later on we'll conspire as we dream by the fire to face unafraid the plans that we made, walking in a winter wonderland. In the meadow we can build a snowman and pretend that he's a circus clown. We'll have lots of fun with Mr. Snowman until the other kitties knock him down. When it snows, ain't it thrilling? Though your nose gets a chillin', we'll frolic and play the Eskimo way, walking in a winter wonderland. Oh. Thank you.
Sarah, that's beautiful. And you know why she won our hearts? All except one. Everyone was voting for it, and I'm not going to tell you who. And then once we talked about it, it was overwhelming, unanimous. You know, we're so privileged to be able to have Ann Rowe customize, if you will, a presentation about the special relationship between Eisenhower and the Annenbergs. And also, I don't know if when you walked in, you saw that as a curator, she had set up and organized some photos and displays of that relationship when you first walk in to the right. So I encourage you to see that. And so Ann, it's really a privilege to have you. Thank you for being here and giving us this presentation. Thank you. You will need this?
Yeah, thanks. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. What a tough act to follow. That was really beautiful. My holiday spirit is soaring now. I'll just speak for a few moments. I know everyone's excited to get to the party. I came to Sunnylands from Boston as an archivist and curator in 2009. I suspected I might find at this site great art, a bounty of china patterns, incredible historic silver, lovely linens, gracious flower-filled guest rooms, miles of William Haynes custom furniture, and a swoon-inducing landscape. But there was one thing I and none of us expected, a time capsule of archives carefully maintained at Sunnylands by the Annenbergs. The Annenbergs retained all of their letters, menus, seating charts, guest room assignments, signed guest books, photos and cards, and so many other materials reflecting their lives, which are unparalleled. Walter and Leonore were prescient in their understanding that if Sunnylands was to become what they hoped, a historic site and a retreat for world leaders, the staff at Sunnylands would need all of that primary resource data to tell the stories accurately. And boy, have we used it. We use it every single day. They gave us the gift of proof. We don't have to speculate when we curate our tours. We have the proof. And I'm going to share with you tonight a little bit of the proof of this friendship that we honor this evening. So we all know that Dwight D. Eisenhower and Walter H. Annenberg, two great American lions, both chose the same exact place to spend their philanthropic years. They could have chosen anywhere in the country, or the world for that matter, and yet they both independently chose our beloved desert as the place where their legacies would reside. Nearly side by side, I might add. We all know that the institutions that they built, the Eisenhower Medical Center and now the Annenberg Retreat at Sunnylands, are best in class, their first cabin. What most of you might not know is how this storied friendship began. The earliest correspondence between the two families in the Annenbergs' files is an invitation inviting the Annenbergs to the Eisenhower-Nixon presidential inauguration in 1953. We assume a cordial relationship emerged from Walter's editorial support of the president in his newspaper, the Philadelphia Inquirer. The earliest personal letter we have between the two is dated 1954. The letter is written on crisp, embossed White House stationery, and it reads, in part, "Dear Mr. Annenberg, I wonder if it would be convenient for you to come to an informal stag dinner. I hope to gather a small group, and I should like very much for you to attend if it is possible for you to do so. Because of the informality of the occasion, I suggest that we meet at the White House about 7:30, have a reasonably early dinner, and devote the evening to a general chat. I shall probably wear a black tie, but business suit will be entirely appropriate. With warm personal regard, sincerely, Dwight D. Eisenhower." Letters between the men and their wives and families ensued over the years. A few months following that stag invitation written to Mr. Annenberg, letters began to arrive, "Dear Walter." There were many dinner invitations, thank you cards, holiday cards, lots of commentary back and forth on national and international matters, including a little grumbling here and there, and including outright arguments and disagreements, a true sign of a trusted friendship. There were often golf and fishing references in their correspondence. One letter written in 1955 reads, "Dear Walter, thank you for sending me the photographs taken at the Tamarisk Country Club in Palm Springs. I'm still proud of that shot I made on the 9th hole that resulted in the naming of Ike's tree. And I'm only sorry that that tree treated you so unkindly. With warm regards, D.E." Okay, fast forward now 10 years from that golf outing in 1955, and imagine that Walter and Leonore acquired the land for Sunnylands and completed the estate. Dwight and Mamie were two of the first visitors to Sunnylands in 1966. President Eisenhower wrote a thank you letter in April of 1966, so this had to be one of their very first dinner parties. Quote, "Dear Mrs. Annenberg, your dinner party Friday evening was one of the most enjoyable I have ever attended. Without exception, I found every guest interesting, and in spite of my passion for going to bed early, I must confess that I was completely astonished that I found I was still sitting at your table at 11:15. This is something we read in the archive over and over. In expressing my sincere thanks to you and Walter, I send also my warmest regards. Affectionately, Dwight D. Eisenhower. In another letter, where the two have exchanged a spirited political conversation regarding Washington politics, Walter soothed his dear friend, the former president, in a 1961 letter. Things were getting heated in this exchange, and he said in his closing, "Please don't even bother to reply, but rather be concerned with the following. Number one, a firm left arm. Number two, right arm close to the body. Number three, a firm grip of the hands. 4, a slow backswing. 5, head anchored over the ball. And 6, plenty of pivot. Warmly, Walter." So he was trying to calm his friend down. In other words, go golf. As Jeff mentioned, in celebration of the 50th anniversary of the completion of Sunnylands and a nod to the 45th anniversary of your beautiful medical center, there is a case for you to look out by the door. If you have a chance, take a peek. In closing, I will share one last snippet from a letter written by President Eisenhower to Walter. The year is 1961. Walter has clearly been attempting to cajole Eisenhower into staying in a public role in an earlier letter, which Eisenhower now responds to. "Dear Walter, of course you are not presumptuous. Coming from you, any communication that even mentions something I might do for the good of our country must command my earnest attention. There are a number of reasons on which I have based my decision to avoid seeking any official post in state or national government. I cannot, in the space permitted by a letter, enumerate and explain all of them. But I have another reason, probably more simply stated. Since 1945, I have been promising my wife to retire. Finally, in January of this year, with Kennedy's inauguration, I came closer to carrying out that promise than I have ever done before. Should I talk to her now seriously about standing for another political office? One result would be that you would have the problem of electing a divorced man. With warm greetings to your charming bride and personal regard to yourself, as ever, D.E. On behalf of Sunnylands, I extend our heartiest congratulations to the Eisenhower Medical Center on this wonderful occasion.
And that was tremendous, remarkable. Thank you for that. And now I want to ask Dr. Coy Lay to come up and present not only frontiers in medicine, but also in an important aspect of medicine, compassionate care. And I may say that Dr. Lay looks like he's 24 years old. I think we're close in age, and I've truly aged. But the reason why he looks this way is because if you see his parents, you'll appreciate that. Would you two mind standing? Both of his parents are here today. And the story of how they made it to this country from Vietnam and then raised their son to go to Harvard and then become a cardiologist is quite a story in its own right. But Dr. Lay, we're privileged to have you speak. Thank you.
I love following Michael because it's always at the right height. I don't like following Aubrey. So, thanks very much. Happy anniversary to Eisenhower and to Sunnylands. I have to admit, I'm not really so tuned into these timelines locally, so when Deborah DeSantis and Michael Landis invited me to speak at a big anniversary event, I thought, they know I've been here for 20 years. That is so cool. I thought these guys at the foundation, they track everything, you know? So, 20 years, it's hard to me to imagine that I've been here for 20 years sometimes. The first time I walked into the cath lab at Eisenhower, I showed up, and Maureen Lockridge, who was the director of the cath lab at that time, looked at me and said, "Does your mother know where you are?" And I would walk in to see patients, and I would get this, and I'd say, "Yes, I am Dr. Lay." And they would look at me with this somewhat anxious look, and you can see in their minds they're thinking, "But you look so good on paper." and then they would try to take a glance up at my medical school diploma, I think to reassure themselves, and to see what year I graduated. But no help there, because I went to a pretentious school that has everything in Latin, so that you can see the M, D, C, 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 V, you know, and since the average age of my patient was VXXXII, it wasn't going to work out. It was going to take them a while. So, so some things actually have not changed much, but others have. And fortunately for us, cardiac care at Eisenhower has changed a lot. The last 20 years, to me, we've been in a golden age of cardiology with the things that we've been able to do. And when I first came, for example, one of the big debates we had, and one of the things that I was invited to talk about was how should we best treat people who are coming to the hospital with a heart attack. And we were just in the phase of transitioning from using sometimes dangerous, sometimes beneficial, but always unpredictable clot-dissolving medications. Many of you probably remember this day, to using balloons to try to open up the blocked vessel immediately. And now, 2015, that's become the standard of care, and through this remarkable cooperation with paramedics and ED, the emergency department, and the cardiac cath lab, we now do this on average at 60 minutes after the patient shows up at Eisenhower. And more often than not, we're now transitioning to doing it through the wrist. Yes, Steve, I know it's the radial artery, sorry. Through a small artery in the wrist. And so the patients are able to stand up right after the heart attack and walk around. In 1995 or 96, if you showed up at Eisenhower and you were having a heart attack, you would expect to be in the ICU for 3 to 4 days. And then you would be transferred to a telemetry, and you'd finish out your week there. Now, the average patient will go home 2 days after the heart attack. Unless you're a 24/7 patient in the Ranker wing. We love you. We want you to stay. Where are you going? You just got here. But really, most impressively, if in 1995, if you came into the heart attack, your odds of dying from that was 1 out of 7. And now it's 1 out of 20. That's just in 20 years. Okay. And even for our elective patients, the ones, the most routine, in 1995, it would be a 2 to 3 day hospital stay for a coronary procedure. Now they go home about 4 hours after a procedure. And we do over 600 of these procedures a year. And it's not like a big number just because we have making more widgets or something. The larger numbers translate into a greater facility with complex cases, with a wider range of tools and a broader skill set. So, and maybe many of you have heard that just starting this past year at Eisenhower, patients now who are considered to be too frail or too old or too sick to undergo open heart surgery can get new heart valves through a catheter inserted in their groin. It's like the ultimate ship in a bottle, right? And it's cutting-edge medicine, and it's being done at Eisenhower. It's being led, a team that's led by this remarkable coalition of doctors Andrew Frutkin, P.K. Khanna, Joseph Wilson, and Matthew Powers, and a whole team of anesthesiologists and other support staff. There are 17 people in the room when one of these cases happens. They did 2 today, but with great success. Okay. So you're thinking, opening up these pipes and putting in new valves, these guys really just want to be plumbers. And maybe we want to be the best plumbers ever, but But it's only partially true because there's a room for electricians too in heart disease. And we're lucky. We've got Andrew Rubin and Leon Feldman, who are two gifted electrophysiologists. And now in the electrophysiology lab at Eisenhower, they can coax a sluggish heart to pick up the pace, and they can mellow out a racing heart. They put in amazing devices. I don't know if you were aware, in 1994, Andy Rubin put in the first defibrillator in the Coachella Valley. Now our Eisenhower Desert Cardiology Clinic, Pacer Clinic, follows 8,000 patients. We're the second largest in California, just behind the Kaiser system. Okay, so our patients are a little bit older than a lot of other people's places, so we have more devices, I think. And if you're a pilot, you need a parachute. If you're a trapeze artist, you have a safety net. If you're a cardiologist, you've got cardiac surgeons. And in 1992, Joseph Wilson came to Eisenhower, which means that he's been practicing at Eisenhower for more than half of the entire history of the hospital. And for most of us at Desert Cardiology, we don't know what it would be like to do what we do without Jody backing us up all the time, which makes a tremendous difference. And under his leadership, cardiac surgery at Eisenhower has made progress every year. Complication rates have gone down. Bleeding rates have gone down. Hospital stays shorter. Survival is up. They've introduced new things, less invasive ways to harvest veins, less invasive surgery, robotic techniques. It's really amazing. And you know, we're talking about cardiac care tonight, but we could just as easily be talking about neurology or radiology, anesthesiology, even orthopedic surgery. The story would be the same. It wouldn't be as interesting, but it would be essentially the same, okay? There have been advances in every field, every medical and surgical field at Eisenhower. Eisenhower is now a place where increasingly locals, and I include all of you as locals, are choosing to stay and have your care. Eisenhower has also become a destination, from the outpatients who are flocking to our many centers of excellence to the critically ill patients who land in our helipads every day. And Eisenhower now is in the third year as a teaching hospital. These bright, inquisitive young docs who fact-checked everything you say makes us better. There's nothing like teaching that forces you to learn. And I think there's a lot of vision there that these young doctors will someday help us with our local primary care doctor shortage. So Dr. Sugar is one of the heads of that program. We really owe him a big debt. And now all these advances and none of this comes on the cheap. And Eisenhower's leadership has invested a king's ransom in technology, in people, in the plant, in the community to make this possible. And we really owe such a tremendous debt to the leadership of Eisenhower, to the board of directors, to the foundation, to all the donors, supporters who've made this possible. And you know, I have to say my gratitude to the hospital is real, and it's personal, because for me, against all odds, Eisenhower and the Coachella Valley have become my home. So we're marking a couple anniversaries here, but there's another anniversary, and that's 40 years ago, my family came to the United States. There's all this talk now where the world seems like such a chaotic place, doesn't it? War, terrorism, refugees that dominate the news. Well, for our family, the world has always seemed a bit chaotic. When we came here, my parents and my sister and I, together alone, in 1975, we arrived in the summer. It was just 2 months after Saigon had fallen, and it was just as the United States was gearing up to celebrate its big bicentennial. We settled in South Bend, where we began our transformation from Vietnamese refugees to fighting Irish. And because I got there, when we got there, I was 14, so really we only had 4 years of living together, my parents and I, before I went off to college and then training, and never moved back to South Bend. But I was looking back, because it's 40 years, at some of the, one night when you can't go to sleep and you start Googling weird things. And I was looking at some of the newspaper things and speeches by politicians at that time. And it's interesting, because there were 130,000 of us. All this debate now about 10,000. We were 130,000 who came here. And there were some names that are familiar who were very outspoken against this large wave of. Joseph Biden was very against. The governor of California then said, we have all these minorities, we can't handle this. The governor of California in 1975 was Jerry Brown. But there was one who was really outspoken in favor of us, actually, and who made a difference, and who visited Fort Chaffee and gave a big speech and said, I regret that we left anybody behind. And that was Gerald Ford, who was the president at that time. And I wonder what he would have said at that time in 1975 if he had known that 30 years later, one of the people he was talking about would do an angiogram on his wife. I still build her, as I said. But it's so, for my parents and I to be here tonight, it's against all odds. It's such, there's a word I looked up, and the meaning is the free and unmerited favor of God. And that's the dictionary definition of grace. And grace is so many things. Grace is a teenage girl living in a tuberculosis sanatorium who survives, wins a scholarship to France, earns advanced degrees from 3 universities, and becomes the first professor of law, female professor of law at Notre Dame Law School. And that's my mother. Grace is a somewhat bookish student who was forced to drop out of high school because of the Japanese invasion during World War II of Vietnam, who then, years later, ends up in England and is the first Vietnamese person to graduate from Cambridge University in England. This is my father. Grace is our family reunited and living in the Coachella Valley in California, the United States of America, for 20 years together now. This is the longest our family has lived together in one place in our entire history. So, now I know all of you have your stories too, how you came to the desert and why, and what led you to become involved and become part of the Eisenhower family. And perhaps Grace played a role there as well. I know it has for Eisenhower. So thank you for all you do for us.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dr. Leif. And you can see where the compassion side of his practice and so many of our physicians' practices come from. And I know he was paying tribute as he was looking over here about Notre Dame and then orthopedics. Dr. O'Connell is sitting over there. But thank you so much for that presentation. And Ann Rowe, thank you so much for your presentation. It's been such a special evening. And this is exactly what Sunnylands and Jeffrey Cowan has made it all about. And so we want to thank also Jeffrey Baum Jeffrey, where are you? Thank you so much for making this happen. And Ken Chavez, thank you for being there for us for Sunnylands and helping organize it. And we just also want to let everyone know that we have hors d'oeuvres outside. It's cool. Okay, it's cold. But we've got hors d'oeuvres outside. It's beautiful. We have 18 heaters, or I don't know how many heaters, but we'd like you to enjoy it out there because the garden setting out there with the lighting is just gorgeous. So if you want, make your way there. Enjoy the rest of the reception, and we just thank you all for your support of both Sunnylands and Eisenhower. Thank you.